Welcome to the reading of the Sabbath School lesson for the second quarter of 2022. Welcome to Lesson 1 from the series on Genesis, titled The Creation. This lesson is ready for teaching on April 2, and my name's Percy Harrold. Tuesday, March 29, the Sabbath. Read Genesis chapter 2, verses 2 and 3, and Exodus 20, verses 8 to 11. Why is the seventh-day Sabbath related to creation? How does this connection impact how we keep the Sabbath? Genesis 2, beginning at verse 2, And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. And Exodus chapter 20, beginning at verse 8, Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. It is precisely because God ended his works of creation that he instituted the Sabbath. The seventh-day Sabbath is therefore the expression of our faith that God finished his work then, and that he found it very good. To keep the Sabbath is to join with God in the recognition of the value and beauty of his creation. We can rest from our works just as God had rested from his. Sabbath-keeping means saying yes to God's very good creation, which includes our physical bodies. Contrary to some ancient and modern beliefs, nothing in Scripture, Old or New Testament, denigrates the body as evil. That's a pagan concept, not a biblical one. Instead, Sabbath keepers are grateful for God's creation, which includes their own flesh, and that is why they can enjoy the creation and why they take care of it. The Sabbath, which marks the first end of human history, also is a sign of hope for suffering mankind and for the groaning of the world. It is interesting that the phrase finished the work reappears at the end of the construction of the sanctuary in Exodus chapter 40, verse 33, And he raised up the court all around the tabernacle and the altar, and hung up the screen of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. And again, at the end of the building of Solomon's temple, 1 Kings chapter 7, verses 40 to 51. Huram made the lavers and the shovels and the bowls, so Huram finished doing all the work that he was to do for King Solomon for the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the 2 pillars, the 2 networks covering the 2 bowl-shaped capitals, which were on top of the pillars, 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, 2 rows of pomegranates for each network to cover the 2 bowl-shaped capitals that were on top of the pillars, the 10 carts, the 10 lavers of the carts, 1 sea and 12 oxen under the sea, the pots, the shovels, and the bowls. All these articles which Huram made for King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of burnished bronze. In the plain of Jordan, the king had them cast in clay moulds between Succoth and Zaratan, and Solomon did not weigh all the articles because there were so many, the weight of the bronze was not determined. Thus Solomon had all the furnishings made for the house of the Lord, the altar of gold, and the table of gold on which was the showbread, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left in front of the inner sanctuary, with the flowers and the lamps and the wick trimmers of gold, the basins, the trimmers, the bowls, the ladles, and the censers of pure gold, and the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner room, the most holy place, and for the doors of the main hall of the temple. So all the work that King Solomon had done for the house of the Lord was finished, and Solomon brought in the things which his father David had dedicated, the silver and the gold and the furnishings. He put them in the treasuries of the house of the Lord. Both places where the lesson of the gospel and salvation had been taught. After the fall, the Sabbath at the end of the week points to the miracle of salvation, which will take place only through the miracle of a new creation, as we read in Isaiah 65, verse 17, which reads, "For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered or come to mind." And in Revelation 21, verse 1, "Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea." The Sabbath is a sign at the end of our human week that the sufferings and trials of this world will have an end as well. This is why Jesus chose the Sabbath as the most appropriate day to heal the sick, as we read in Luke 13, verses 13 to 16. "And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God." But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which men ought to work, therefore come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath day." The Lord then answered him and said, "Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, think of it, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath?" Contrary to whatever traditions the leaders were stuck in, by the Sabbath healings, Jesus pointed the people and us to the time when all pain, all suffering, all death will be over, which is the ultimate conclusion to the salvation process. Hence, each Sabbath points us to the hope of redemption. And so to finish today, by resting on the Sabbath day, how are we experiencing the rest and salvation that we have in Jesus now, and that which will be fulfilled ultimately in the creation of the new heaven and the new earth? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind, and It Is Written. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. Remember, God is always faithful.